They told me to ask my daughter for rent money. My own son had a $9 million book of clients and his wife told me to go ask the community college adjunct instead. That's the kind of sentence that lodges behind your ribs like a fishbone. I didn't say a word back to Denise that night, 61 years old, and I just sat there. But before I tell you the rest, understand something. This isn't a story about money. Not really. It's a story about who shows up when you've got nothing left to offer them. Let me back up. I live in a rented duplex off Route 9 outside Lansing, Michigan, the kind of place you take when you tell yourself it's temporary, and then 11 years go by. The storm door doesn't latch right. I've been meaning to fix it since the first frost. It was a Thursday in late September, cold enough already that I'd started running the space heater in the evenings, and I was at the kitchen table sorting mail I didn't want to open. A shut-off notice from Consumers Energy. A letter from the pharmacy about a balance due, because bad news always comes in an envelope that thick. Denise's phone rang from the counter. I watched her whole face change like someone had thrown a switch behind her eyes. "Marcus, honey," she practically sang it. "Tell me everything." I set my coffee down. "Is that Marcus? Let me say hi." She didn't look at me. She turned her back to me, actually turned her whole body, like I was a draft she needed to shut out, and walked into the living room. I heard fragments. A book of clients worth $9 million. "I'm so proud of you, baby. You get that head for business from my side." Your grandfather could sell shoes to a man with no feet. God rest him. I sat there and listened to my wife of 29 years talk to our son like he'd just been knighted instead of closed an insurance portfolio. I'm not saying that to be bitter. I'm saying it because it's true. And you need to know what normal looked like in my house before I tell you what came next. She hung up eventually, still glowing, walked back into the kitchen, and the glow dropped off her face like she'd taken off a mask. "He's doing so well, Walter." "That's good," I said. And I meant it. Whatever had gone sideways between me and that boy, I never once wished him ill. Denise didn't say anything else. She just slid the Consumers Energy bill across the table toward me. Didn't ask if I was okay. Didn't ask about the cough I'd had for a month that I kept blaming on the change of seasons. "Handle this," she said, before they shut it off again. Again. Like it was a pattern. Like I was the pattern. "If you're new here, welcome. This one's going to take a minute, so get comfortable. Oh, here's the part where I'm supposed to make myself look better than I am. I won't. 12 years ago, I wasn't some deadbeat who blew the family's savings on lottery tickets. I ran a small engineering consultancy. Nothing fancy, but steady. I'd sunk my savings into 40 acres out past Eagle Township, land that was going to sit directly along a proposed rail freight corridor. Everybody said I was sharp. Denise used to brag about it at book club. Then a neighboring scrapyard's underground tanks failed. Solvent leached into the water table before anyone even knew. My 40 acres, everything I had, got locked under a state remediation order before I'd broken ground. Couldn't sell it, couldn't build on it, couldn't do a thing except keep paying the property taxes and watch my credit collapse. The bank called my loans. My business partner walked. And Denise never once asked if I was okay. She asked how I was going to fix it. That was 12 years ago. I've driven a delivery route for a regional beverage distributor ever since. Somewhere in there, our son turned 22 and decided his whole young life had been ruined because his father couldn't cover his semester abroad. He's never forgiven me for that. In his mind, I gambled and lost, and he paid for it. Maybe he needed a villain. I used to think. And I was standing right there. My daughter's different. Laura's 27, works as an adjunct composition instructor at the community college, about a 20-minute drive from here. She was 17 when the leak happened. Old enough to remember the house we lost, young enough to have watched me rebuild something out of nothing instead of just mourning it. She came by 2 nights after that phone call, carrying a container of soup, the way her grandmother used to make it. She didn't say one word about bills or Marcus's $9 million. She just set it down, kissed the top of my head and said, "You still coughing like that, old man?" Just the weather. She didn't believe me. Never did. "You're seeing Dr. Alvarez Friday. Don't argue." I didn't argue. There wasn't much point. But Dr. Alvarez wasn't smiling when he came back into the exam room. "Walter, I won't sugarcoat it. A mass on your lung. It's operable, and that's the good news. But it needs to come out soon. Weeks. Not months." But there it is, I thought. "Okay," I said, "because what else do you say?" The woman from billing, name of Pam, looked about as comfortable as a person can look while telling me my coverage had a gap for the specific procedure. 4,200 due before they'd booked the operating room. Hospital policy. I sat in my truck in that parking lot and did the math 6 different ways, and it came out the same every time. I didn't have it. My credit was still wreckage from the land debt. No bank in Ingham County was going to touch me. $4,200, I thought. And I've got a son with a $9 million book of business. I told myself I wouldn't call him. That lasted 2 days. And I called anyway, because that's what a father does. You swallow your pride and hope he's still in there somewhere. I picked up on the 4th ring. Glasses clinking in the background, somebody laughing. Dad, can this wait? We're at the Peninsula Grill celebrating the Holleran account. I told him everything. The mass, the surgery, the coverage gap, the $4,200 by end of week. A long pause. Long enough that for one stupid second I thought, maybe. Then his voice went flat. I've spent 12 years digging myself out of the hole your bad investments put this family in. And now you want me to throw money into, what? More of your bad planning. Marcus, this isn't about the land. This is surgery. You brought this on yourself, Dad. Ask the hospital for a payment plan. A pause, quieter and meaner. I've got a reputation to protect now. I can't keep carrying your dead weight. The line went dead. I called Denise next, asked if she'd talk to him, soften him up. Don't you dare ruin this for him, she snapped. He worked hard to get away from your mess. Nora's got a stable job, doesn't she? Go ask her. But she called our daughter Nora, at least. She'd never once gotten that name wrong, only ever the money. I sat in that truck a long time. Didn't cry. I was past crying. Just sat there thinking about how a man could spend his whole life building something for his family and end up alone in a parking lot doing math that never came out right. I met Nora at a diner off Saginaw Highway 2 days later. I hadn't planned on telling her. I was going to smile and eat my eggs and let her think everything was fine. She knew before I said a word. She always knew. Dad, she set her fork down. Tell me right now. So I told her. I was ashamed to even be sitting across from my 27-year-old daughter, an adjunct who couldn't have more than a couple $1,000s to her name, about to ask her for money her own brother had refused without blinking. I didn't even finish the sentence. Nora reached into her bag and set an envelope on the table. Then she turned her phone around so I could see the screen. A confirmation from a used car buyer. Sold. 3,000. Dad, stop talking. Her eyes were wet, but her voice wasn't shaking at all. There's $2,200 cash in there. I sold the Corolla this morning. Nora, you sold your car? Cars can be replaced, Dad. She grabbed my hand hard, the way you grab something you're not letting go of. I'm taking the bus for a while. Fine by me. I wept in that booth in front of a waitress and half the lunch crowd. My daughter, the one nobody ever bragged about on the phone, held my hand across a Formica table and told me I was going to be okay. She's the only one who ever really saw me. I had no idea, sitting there, how much that moment was about to matter. It wheeled me into pre-op at 6 in the morning on a Thursday in early October. Nora's face was the last thing I remember before the anesthesia took me. Right up close, her hand squeezing mine. You're going to be fine, old man. I already told the nurses you're too stubborn to let this beat you. Then the lights went out. I woke up 9 hours later with a tube down my throat, and Dr. Alvarez leaning close so I could hear him over the monitor. We got it all, Walter. Clean margins. I thought about the Corolla sitting on some stranger's driveway now. She bought me this, not the hospital. My daughter, with a $2,000 sale and a car she needed for work. I'm going to make this right, I told myself, however long it takes. I spent the next 2 weeks recovering on Nora's pull-out couch, because my own house had gone quiet in a way I couldn't stand to lie in alone, and Denise hadn't so much as texted. Nora's apartment was small, 1 bedroom, off Cedar Street near the campus. She'd taped her bus schedule to the fridge with a magnet from the county fair, right next to a photo of the 2 of us from some long ago 4th of July. I looked at that bus schedule every morning. Who's out there waiting at 6:40 in this cold, I thought. Because she sold her car for me. And Marcus is driving a leased BMW to a steakhouse to celebrate a bonus he'll blow through in 6 months. She'd come home in her teacher clothes, smelling like dry erase markers, heat up something simple, check my incision, sit with me through whatever crime show was on, and never once, not one single time, bring up the car. But that's the difference, I thought, watching her doze off sitting up in a kitchen chair one night. Marcus gives because he wants credit. Nora gives because she doesn't even register it as giving. It's just love to her. It was a Tuesday, 17 days after the surgery, when the mail carrier knocked instead of leaving it in the box. Nora was at work. I answered in my robe, still moving slow. 2 certified letters. Need a signature. One from an outfit I didn't recognize. Meridian Rail Logistics Partners. One from an address I knew instantly, because I'd been getting mail from them for 12 straight years. The Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy. Here we go, I thought. Another update. Another 6 months of nothing. I almost set it on the counter unopened. Something made me sit down at Nora's little table and tear it open instead. I read it 3 times because I didn't trust my own eyes. Remediation status. Complete. Site released from state oversight effective September 30. 12 years of property taxes on land I couldn't touch. Of my credit sitting in the gutter. Of my own wife looking at me like a stain on the family. And it was sitting right there in black and white. Done. Released. Clean. I opened the second letter. While my 40 acres had sat locked under a state order, the rail freight corridor I'd bet everything on 12 years earlier had finally broken ground less than a mile from my property line, and the land was now zoned for logistics development. Exactly the kind of growth I'd predicted a decade too early. The letter was an offer. Signed. Real numbers behind it. 1.4 million cash. 45-day close. I read that number maybe 20 times. I sat very, very still. $11,400,000, I thought. And 3 weeks ago I was crying in a diner because I couldn't find 4,200. I looked up, and my eyes landed on that bus schedule on the fridge. Nora's handwriting in the corner. Route 464, because she'd had to memorize a whole new commute at 27 to save her father's life. Who's out there right now, I thought, standing at a bus stop. And I'm sitting here holding $11 million. Something in me went quiet and cold and very clear. I didn't call Denise. I didn't call Marcus. Remember that. It matters for what comes later. I never hid this from anybody. I just didn't see one reason to tell people who'd already told me in their own words that my problems weren't their problems. I called Harlan Bricks instead, the attorney who'd handled what little business I had left after the spill. Mostly because I still paid him on time. Every time, no matter how small the check. Harlan, it's Walter. I need you to pull some paperwork today, and I need you to look at an offer. I told him everything. Long pause on the line. Walter, he finally said, that changes everything. I know it does. So I looked at the bus schedule again. That's exactly why I need you to pull something else first. Remember the document Denise had you draw up about 6 years back? Another pause. The separate property partition. The one Marcus pushed for. That's the one. Tell me exactly what it says. Don't leave anything out. Because if I remember that document right, I thought, Denise didn't just protect herself from my failure. She signed away every claim to whatever came next. Good or bad. Harlan called back 2 hours later, papers shuffling. I'll read you the operative clause, Walter. Denise Pace hereby waives, releases, and forever discharges any and all present or future marital claim, interest or right, legal or equitable, and into the real property described herein, including any proceeds, appreciation, or value realized therefrom, regardless of cause. Regardless of cause, I repeated slowly. Does that mean what I think it means? It means exactly what we drew up 6 years ago, Walter. You wanted the house and her retirement accounts fully protected from your land liabilities, so she partitioned the estate, took the house as her sole separate property, and forced you to take 100% ownership of the debt-ridden land as your sole separate property. Notarized, binding, whatever happens to that land now. Good, bad, or an $11 million buyout. She waived every legal claim to it. Marcus was the one who pushed her into it, wasn't he? Set the whole meeting up. He was. Told her it was smart. Told her it'd protect her credit if the debt ever came for the property. Harlan exhaled. Son of a gun. It was smart. Just not in the direction he thought. I sat at that kitchen table with the late afternoon light coming through thin apartment blinds, and for the first time in 12 years I felt something in my chest that wasn't shame. It was clarity. Harlan, I want to move on the offer. I don't want a single soul outside this call knowing until it's done. Not Denise. Not Marcus. Especially not them. All of it, Walter. The whole 11. 4. Every dime, after my debt's clear, goes into an irrevocable trust. In Nora's name. I could hear him not saying anything for a second. She sold her car for me, Harlan. Took a loan at a rate I don't even want to say out loud so I could get on a table. She's been riding a bus at 6:40 in the cold for 2 weeks so I'd have somewhere to heal. Meanwhile, my son told me to ask the hospital for a payment plan. And my wife told me not to ruin his celebration. I'm not splitting this 3 ways for the sake of looking fair. Fair already happened, in a diner off Saginaw Highway 3 weeks ago. Only one of my children showed up for it. I hear you. I'll have the paperwork ready by Friday. One more thing. Don't put my name on the deed for the house I'm buying her either. Trust owns it outright. I want it airtight. Airtight. Airtight, Harlan said. Understood. I hung up and sat a long while, listening to the window unit hum, looking at that bus schedule stuck to the fridge with a county fair magnet. They'll find out eventually, I thought. And when they do, they won't come here asking how I'm feeling. They'll come asking about money. Oh, so I wasn't wrong. But not the way I expected. And not for the reason I expected. Marcus and Denise didn't come because they'd heard about the land. They didn't know yet. They came 9 days later because Marcus was drowning in a mess of his own making and needed money badly enough to set foot in the one place he'd never have to. His broke, embarrassing father's temporary bedroom on his sister's pull-out couch. He had no idea I was already holding the document that had frozen him out 6 years before he ever showed up. I spent those 9 days healing, walking a little farther each morning. Sitting on Nora's little balcony watching the sun go down over the parking lot, thinking about 40 acres that had finally, after 12 years, stopped punishing me. Then that Wednesday evening, somebody pounded on the door like they meant to knock it off the hinges. "Dad, open up, I know you're in there." Marcus's voice, loud, frayed at the edges in a way I'd never heard. Nora got there first, still in her work clothes. "You want to explain why you're pounding on my door like the police?" Marcus pushed past her without answering, Denise right behind him, arms crossed. Neither one looked at me. Neither one asked about the scar still tender under my shirt. "Dad," Marcus's voice cracked. "We need to talk. Now." There it is, I thought. Not how are you feeling? Not I'm sorry I hung up on you outside a hospital. Straight to business. "Sit down, Marcus. You look like you're about to have a heart attack of your own." He didn't sit. I was looking through the county commercial registry today. Meridian Rail logged a deed transfer. 40 acres out past Eagle Township. "That's your dirt, Dad." They flagged the title history because of the waiver Mom signed 6 years ago. He stared at me. 11 million? You sold it, didn't you? Denise's mouth fell open. 11 million. Walter, is that true? So that's how they found out, I thought. Not from me, from a registry filing. Almost funny. It's true. Closed 9 days ago. 9 days? Marcus's voice climbed. You've had this for 9 days and didn't call your own son? Last time I called you, Marcus, we were at a steakhouse celebrating a commission while I sat in a hospital parking lot figuring out how to pay for surgery. You told me it wasn't your problem. So no, I didn't feel obligated to call the second something good happened either. That should have softened him. It didn't. You hid this from us, he said, finger jabbing toward me like it would make the words truer. You knew the cleanup was finishing. You knew that land was about to be worth something. You let Mom drive a 10-year-old sedan while you sat on a fortune, just so you could hand it to your favorite the second it paid off. He believes that, I thought. He's rewriting the whole thing in real time, and he believes every word. Marcus, I said, quieter, which somehow made the room go quieter too. I didn't know that land was worth a dime until 17 days ago. I found out sitting on your sister's pull-out couch, recovering from surgery she paid for. You want to talk about hiding things? I hid the fact that I was scared for 12 straight years, because every time I tried to talk about it, your mother told me to fix the bill, and you told me I ruined your semester abroad. Denise stepped in, chin up. Don't you stand there and play the victim, Walter. I stood by you for 29 years while you dragged this family through your disasters. That money belongs to this family. You're being vindictive. Stingy. Stingy, Marcus repeated, and here his voice dropped low and mean. It's disgusting. We're not asking anymore, Dad. Mom's filing for divorce tomorrow morning. Financial abandonment, the works. My attorney's already drafting a motion to freeze every account connected to that sale. You hid marital assets. That's not a gray area. That's fraud. He slammed his hand flat on Nora's kitchen table. The same table where weeks earlier she'd slid an envelope of cash across without a second. But my lawyers will bury you. I looked at Marcus a long moment. Then Denise. Then I stood, slow, careful of my ribs, and reached into my jacket pocket. You want to talk about lawyers, Marcus? Let's talk about lawyers. I slid the first document across to Denise. You remember this? She looked down, and the color drained out of her face before she finished the first line. 6 years ago, you and Marcus sat me down at my own kitchen table. You were scared the bank would come after your assets over my land debt. Marcus's idea. He told you it was smart, that it'd protect your credit if the debt ever caught up with the property. So you signed this. Sole separate property for you. The house, your accounts. Sole separate property for me. The land. And every liability attached. Read it again. I tapped the page. It doesn't say debt. It says regardless of cause. You didn't just protect yourself from my failure, Denise. You waived any future claim to its value. Whatever that value turned out to be. Your own attorney explained it to you. Marcus signed as a witness. Marcus's face had gone pale too, but he wasn't done. That doesn't matter. I'll still take you to court. On what grounds? I slid the second document to him. Look at this first. A bank statement. Nora's. That's what's in your sister's checking account right now. $8. Because 3 weeks ago she sold her car and took out a loan at a brutal rate so I could get on an operating table while you were ordering top-shelf scotch to celebrate a commission. Go ahead, bring every lawyer in Ingham County. But first explain to a judge how you plan to claim a share of assets your mother waived in writing 6 years ago, on your own advice. And explain where you were the night your father needed $4,200 for cancer surgery, and where your sister was. Nobody said anything. Just the window unit humming, a neighbor's television bleeding through the ceiling. But didn't hide this to be petty, I said, voice finally coming down soft, tired. I found out about the land's release sitting on that pull-out couch 17 days after surgery. It took 45 days to close. The trust was finalized last week. But I want you both to understand, even if I'd known months sooner, it wouldn't change this moment one bit. I looked at Denise, then Marcus. You two divorced yourselves from this family a long time ago. You just hadn't gotten around to the paperwork yet. The trust is already finalized, I said. Irrevocable. The full $4 million goes to Nora, all of it. First thing Harlan did was pay off her loan and burn the contract to ash. Then the title on this apartment building, so she doesn't owe rent while her new house is being finished. Then the tutoring fund she's been trying to start for kids who can't afford it. There's a car waiting on her too, though she's going to fuss at me about it. I folded my hands. You're both officially free of my mistakes now? Isn't that what you wanted? For 12 years I heard how I ruined this family. Well, the failure's over. Turns out you signed yourselves right out of everything that came after it. Denise's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Marcus just stood there, staring at that bank statement like it might rearrange itself if he looked hard enough. Get out of my daughter's home, I said. Quiet. Final. They left in a silence I'd never once heard out of either of them in 29 years of marriage and 27 years of raising that boy. No slammed door. Just two people walking out, realizing in real time that the very cleverness Marcus had always been so proud of, the maneuver he'd talked his own mother into, was the exact thing that had locked them both out of a fortune neither would ever see a dime of. Nora stood in the kitchen doorway after they'd gone, arms wrapped around herself. Dad. You didn't have to give me all of it. Yeah, I said. I did. I put my arm around her, careful of my ribs, and we stood there a minute in that little apartment that wouldn't be hers much longer. Not because she was losing it, but because she was finally getting more than she'd ever asked anybody for. Hers can be replaced, she'd told me months before, sliding an envelope across a diner table. You can't. Turned out I couldn't be replaced either. Not to her. And that was worth more than any number a rail logistics company ever put on a piece of paper. Somewhere across town that night, my son sat down to figure out how he was going to explain to his firm's partners that a $9 million book of clients wasn't nearly enough to save him now. And there wasn't a single soul left in his corner willing to bail him out. Funny how that works out.